I don't know. What is this? Japan in the 1960s was insane?
I received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government. I deem this reply the unconditional surrender of Japan.
There's this moment after World War II where the world is suddenly changing really quickly and Japan is being completely remade. Because armed with an unconditional surrender and the atomic bomb, America could do anything to Japan. But when soldiers under General Douglas MacArthur entered Tokyo, their assignment wasn't to punish the country that had just started a war that killed 30 million people.
The fudging of the numbers reminds me of why Japan has such a high conviction rate. Prosecutors only take cases they know they can win. No, they also can legally torture you for 38 days. That's why everyone always says, if you ever get, if you're ever arrested for a crime that you didn't even commit, it is literally easier for you to say that you did commit the crime. It's better for you to just admit guilt. Yeah. You have involuntary hold for 38 days, immediately. They can use that. Even if you're a fucking tourist or an American, yes. The other side of it, though, is that if you're an American military member in Okinawa, for example, and you fucking murk an entire Japanese family because you fell asleep on the wheel when you were driving around, and you do go to Japanese prison, America will extract you. America will literally go, hey, by the way, you have to give him back to us. He's a family guy. What I'm describing to you literally happened not that long, a couple months ago.
Instead, their task was to rebuild Japan, and more importantly, to transform it into a peaceful democratic nation. And today, that's what Japan has become, a democratic country famous for its technology and innovation, and for its peacefulness. But this American transformation didn't happen overnight, and its success was far from guaranteed. There was a time when anything was possible.
Democracies, when you have the same party run by the same fucking familial lineage, dominate politics as a uniparty process in perpetuity. Have to rewrite your constitution. Notice how everybody fucking chirps about China being a one-party state. But no smoke exists for any country that is within the sphere of influence. People will be like, oh, well, there's a democracy. There's other parties out there. There's a communist party out there. It doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day.
A time when leading politicians declared friendship with communists and swore opposition to America. When massive crowds dominated the streets of Tokyo, storming parliament, attacking American officials, and chanting, "Yankee, go home." When many believed Japan was on the verge of a socialist revolution. That is until this wave of resistance hit its final crescendo. When in 1 year, 3 enormous events combined to set Japan on the path to becoming the country we know today. First, a new treaty with America. Then, the largest protest in the country's modern history. And finally, a brutal samurai sword assassination televised for the entire country to witness. But these 3 events don't just explain why Japan is the way it is today,
Another
because
gay
this
fascist.
story actually helps explain a fundamental truth about why every society is the way it is. This is Japan 1960. The year that made a nation. This
Typical gay incel fascist, dude. Like the OG in many respects.
is the year of blood. The American occupation of Japan began with nearly boundless idealism. Immediately, the political and military leaders responsible for the conflict were arrested, many charged with war crimes, while the emperor was forced to renounce his divinity and endorse a shockingly progressive constitution. This new founding document established Japan as a
cap on caps. The Japanese war criminals that are targeted and identified as war criminals were literally given amnesty as a direct consequence of the war crimes that they engaged in. American military thought it would be infinitely more useful not to waste all of their torture camp experimentation. Unit 731, specifically operating in Manchuria, that did a litany of war crimes, including testing what happens when you freeze someone to death, you know, things like that. What we ended up doing basically was saying, yeah, you guys are war criminals, but if you give us this information, if you give us all the secret torture stuff and all the documents, if you show us like what you did as far as like biological warfare, biological weapons, which we will inevitably use against our, you know, greatest enemy, which is communism. We won't arrest you and we won't prosecute you. That is a real thing. Many people often forget the dark side of Japanese history and their involvement in World War II and think that like the Nazis were the only bad guys in town. Nope. The Japanese did Nazi style experimentation in China and Korea as well. So like the idea that like it was, there's been no better rebranding than like, you know, post-imperial Japan, post-World War II Japan, a country that was never, a country that basically never had to reckon with its violence and its crimes, its war crimes, specifically because, you know, they were also victim to like a genuine crime, I would say, you know, 2 atom bombs kind of does that for you. It's pretty crazy. Plus, you know, the subsequent American allegiance that came afterwards, those 2 things played a major role. And I'm not even joking when I say this, anime, like literally. The fire bombings of Tokyo, the fire bombings of like densely populated civilian areas, and the 2 atom bombs being deployed on top of, again, densely populated civilian areas made people really go, you know what? I guess they did all the fucking war crimes, but you know, they did get war crime themselves, so it's fine, I guess.
Liberal democracy, of course, but it went further, guaranteeing equality between men and women and enshrining the rights of workers to unionize and self-advocate, measures absent even from America's own constitution. At the same time, large farms were divided.
I just learned about what Japan did in World War II in class. I've been shaking and crying ever since. This isn't the Sugoi Japan I know. This can't be real. Japan would never do that. I know from anime that Japan would never do this. Nandemo. I pride myself on being an anime expert, an otaku if you will, which means I know basically everything about Japan. So the more I think about it, the more I think this has to be fake. This is not Sugoi. This is not kawaii.
Divided and redistributed, and massive monopolistic corporations were slated to be broken up. Old, hierarchical Japan was quickly giving way to a new, democratic Japan. But perhaps the biggest break from the past was the Constitution's Article 9. The Japanese people forever renounce war as a sovereign right. Land, sea, and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. These were massive, controversial,
you know, there's a little bit unless there's like, I don't know, much larger developing hegemonic power in the region that we are trying to compete against and we're very afraid of, in which case we will fucking allow Japan to redevelop its military capabilities, even personally, beyond the fact that we treat the island nation as a goddamn unsinkable aircraft carrier. Interesting. There was another fucking group of Axis nations out there that we also demilitarized by force and then turned around and are now allowing to basically remilitarize. Surely nothing crazy will happen.
Social changes, but despite some discontent, Japan's path to democratic modernity seemed clear, until one day, everything changed.
Here,